Hello and welcome to Finextra. I'm Emily Haller and I'm here with Richard Ransom of Bottomline, and we're talking about the changing compliance landscape for corporates. Thank you very much for joining me, Richard.
Hello.
Why is the compliance burden for corporates greater than it's ever been?
I think this time is a unique convergence of political, economic and technological factors. So from a political point of view, we've got the regulators and central and European governments trying to make sure that markets and banks are safe following the two financial crises, not only the ones at the beginning of the 2000s, but also the recent financial crisis. We have increased risk of cybercrime. So that's not only people hacking into systems, that's also fraud within the workplace, and that's increased. KPMG say that's up. It's about 262 million UK sterling impact in the first half of 2015. So there's a lot going on that's come together at once, and there's regulation and different compliance from all sorts of places.
So what would you highlight as the key compliance challenges that your corporate customers are grappling with?
One area that our corporates are looking at the moment is around e-invoicing. So lots of EU directives around governments making their invoices electronic, and that's something that's starting to flow down into corporates. One thing that corporates have said though is without a proper standard it becomes very difficult for them to adopt that. Another part of this is around late payment, so late payment directives across Europe, sort of forcing bigger organisations to pay SMEs within a certain time scale. In the UK it's a 30-day limit, are also things that organisations can look at. So Bottomline, we have adopted a prompt payment code, so we pay our invoices within 30 days to our suppliers. So a lot of the corporate compliance challenges flow down from the banks. So the requirements of Basel III in terms of liquidity, a change in the relationship the banks have, so there's some uncertainty there. Money laundering and the AML directive, then that's starting to flow down to the corporate world as well. So moving from secure socket layer technology to TLS, and that sounds quite technical, but that impacts the way that corporates connect with the back service. So these aren't high value payments, these are the low volume payroll payments, direct debit payments. They're all very important, but these things are changes. That's a big problem at the moment. There's a short timeline to get that ready. But there's also the impact of the different regulators in terms of what will they do. So how will PSD2 play out in terms of how banks' relationship with corporates change in terms of the way that money flows between banks and corporates? Will banks become more disintermediated because of these rules? Do banks particularly want that, or are banks keen to run their own affairs a bit more?
What kind of approaches can corporates take to both meet their compliance obligations and generate operational and commercial benefits at the same time?
So one of the wider operational efficiencies of having a consolidated platform, as I've referred to earlier, is around cash management. So your working capital management could improve if you're routing everything through the same platform. This is not only payments out, it's also information coming in. So if you've got information coming in from your bank statements, then you can start to look at things like sweeping and pooling of accounts as well. So I think from a technological point of view, organisations can look to meet the requirements of things like Sarbanes-Oxley in terms of control, but also protect themselves from changes in regulation technology by consolidating platforms. You may consolidate these in-house. Give yourself consistent controls around all the outbound payments you have, whether they're domestic or international. So delegation of authority, levels of approval, limits, reporting, all these things are important for things like Sarbanes-Oxley, and you can do that with a consolidated system. Now, putting that in the cloud means you protect yourself from the different regulatory changes that happen. So someone else is managing the infrastructure around what you do. In terms of cybercrime, looking at how you're structured for looking at things like invoice fraud. So how much control is there to prevent people making changes in your ERP, and how much control is there to avoid payments being made into employees' accounts that should be going to vendors. So some very simple things you can do. And I think one last thing, with SEPA nearly coming to a close for UK corporates in October, one thing you can do is make sure that you're going to be fully compliant by October 2016. So make sure that you are presenting ISO 20022 to your bank, and that you're presenting the right account data in your files. So it's very important that ISO 20022 is a growing standard. So the UK payment systems isn't quite ready for ISO 20022 yet, like the rest of Europe. However, we could see that happening. But around the world, something called Common Global Implementation is moving different organisations and banks to that ISO 20022 standard. So my final thing would be to look at your bank and see whether they will adopt or they're using ISO 20022 for your corporate to bank connectivity as well as for connecting into payment systems.
Richard, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you for watching.